freshly pressed this morning. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa, and I welcome you specially. I've been joined by two gentlemen this morning to help us break down the headlines from the local dailies. First, I say good morning to AB Bozimo. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. Great to see you guys in the studio, and good morning to every.
And I also come back to say good morning to Mr. C. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Amas. Good morning, AB. Good morning, Lagos.
With the morning set already to be good this morning, let's delve into the newspaper headlines as we begin with the Daily Trust newspaper, and Mr. C would get us started this morning. And this one is from the Daily Trust saying, federal government in talk with the World Bank for $1.5 billion US budget support facility loan. And that's according to the Finance Minister Wale Edu speaking. And this is coming off the sideline of the just completed IMF World Bank annual meeting in Marrakesh, Morocco. How soon are we likely to see this borrowing ending, or is this going to be a recurrent situation until we find our feet somewhere in the future?
Okay, thank you, Matt. So, to answer your last question first, it's a bit difficult for Nigeria to say when borrowing will end, because borrowing in itself is not bad, and it depends on the exigent circumstances that exist at the point in time. Now, the Minister of Finance was speaking on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank annual meeting in Marrakesh, and he did indicate that Nigeria was on the verge of obtaining the 1.5 billion budget support facility. Now, the report doesn't state whether this is a loan or a grant, and it is only the terms of the document that will clearly spell out whether it's a loan or grant. But if we read the story further, he made references to concessionary funding and the fact that he believes or expects the interest rate to be at zero or near zero. So we're probably looking at a loan in its simplest form. Now, what is this loan meant for? Because Nigerians want to know. There's very little detail at the moment, but if looking at the name of the facility itself, it presupposes that the money will be used to achieve certain things that have been outlined for expenditure in this year's budget. Now, how soon will this happen? We don't have the details yet, and we must remember that in any event, before Nigeria can draw down on any portion of this loan, of this facility, once it is granted, the National Assembly has to give its approval. So we're not yet at the stage where the details have been taken to the National Assembly, for the National Assembly to then have considered deliberations and discussions about the propriety, the benefits, and the cons of obtaining and drawing down on this facility. Now, before this present administration got into office, we had been bedeviled with the fact that we had taken on too many loans, and our debt service to revenue ratio was quite high. Now, the latest figures are not out, so it's still unclear as to how far we address that issue. Now, we're going to tackle a further $1.5 billion. Like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with taking loans. However, we should stop the cycle of previous administrations taking loans for consumption, for activities linked to consumption, and we should try and focus on loans that will generate or stimulate the economy in the various industrial and manufacturing sectors, that we begin to drive productivity, because it is only productivity that will bring in revenue, and this revenue will then help to sort of ease the forex crisis within.
All right, so AB, I know you want to ship in something, so let's get over to with that, and then we'll go over to the Guardian newspaper.
Just like Mr. C said, loans, in fact, the US is the most indebted country in the world. So loans in and of themselves are not bad. However, it is scandalous in my view that while Mr. Edu is at the World Bank, after the head of the World Bank had pointedly stated that African countries should look inward, he went ahead and made certain statements like this, that the international development agencies have free money. There is no such thing as free money. He further went on to say, it's not a bad thing for Nigeria to qualify for help. Is it a bad thing for Nigeria to qualify to help others? And lastly, In the middle of all this, there is another news headline not stated today where the National Assembly is getting ready to procure vehicles for themselves at 40 billion naira. Going back to the consumption side of things, how is it you are looking for help when your leadership in your country is trying to buy cars that not a single one of them knows how it's made, where it's made, or why it's made? That is a scandal, not the loan.
All right, that said, AB, before we get to your headline this morning from The Guardian, we'd like the listener to know they're also equally very important, and we value their contribution as we begin to dissect the headline this morning on Freshly Pressed. Let's get your thoughts in on 0809-444-0981. Once again, 0809-444-0981. Like, get the messages there. So let's go over now. AB, this headline comes in here, and incidentally, today is World Food Day, and it says, World Food Day, Nigerians cry to President Tinubu over worsening hunger index in the country. Now, for someone standing as a spectator from outside, one will look at all of the greenery we've got on our vegetation and the land expanse we've got and say, why do we have any business being hungry as a country?
Because as a set of leaders at the federal, state, and local government levels, there has been a mass failure to prioritize the needs of the people. Nigeria as a country is blessed to have over 60% arable land scattered at various places. Nigeria is one of the countries where if you eat a fruit and throw it at the roadside or the bush path side, you will come back a few months or years later and see something sprouting. This is uncontrolled. So the reason why there's hunger in the land is because of a lack of management. I'm looking at this headline, Nigerians cry to Tinubu. What do you actually want Tinubu to do? The last time Tinubu held a hoe was when he did agricultural science in his Form 3. The last time he ever drove a vehicle, whether a mechanized truck or anything, was maybe before he became a governor. He can neither drive a mechanized vehicle nor use a hoe. We have to look closer at our local government and our state governments. Yes, the president heads everything, but the people who we need to hold by the trouser are at the local government, because even at the local government, they get billions with a B of naira every month. What do they use it for? You find them carousing around in bulletproof vehicles, none of which they made in their local governments. You find them going on assorted courses, quote unquote, in anywhere in the country except their country. You find them wearing white linen wherever they can to look important. Meanwhile, they have refused to prioritize the lives of. So agriculture is not a short-term thing, agreed. But what is the route? What is the value chain? Where are the roads that will lead even the small produce that we're creating into the town? I don't know whether you saw one video recently of farm produce that had fallen at a roadside in Nigeria. People's hard work. A carrot takes months to grow. People's hard work in sacks had fallen because roads are not created. So what are the people doing? A road is a state thing. A road. That is why their colleagues went into somewhere in Borno and their throats were slit. You see, it's not just about food. It's an entire value chain that is not being prioritized. Security, agricultural inputs, and just prioritizing the lives of citizens. That is why Nigerians are crying out. But I think apart from crying to Tinubu, we should cry to our closer leaders.
That said, we go on now for a copy of the Vanguard newspaper, and Mr. C would take us through this headline. Senate renews commitment to passing pro-people legislation. Well, as you get ready to help us understand this headline, and as we go into it, one would ask, so why did we really send them there in the first place?
Thank you. So, the Deputy President of the Senate was speaking and just concluded 9th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit, and he renews their commitment to passing pro-people legislation. Now, like you said, If that's what you were sent there to do in the first place, why did you need to make the statement? And I think the answer lies in the very fact that you have to make the statement. Because before now, it is extremely debatable, being extremely charitable, that previous Senates have had the people at the top of their priority list when they've enacted laws or done things or done all the things that they have done. It's truly debatable. Now, talk is cheap. It's easy to say when we renew their commitment to passing for people legislation. However, it's in the devil is in the details. The taste is the taste is
The taste of the pudding.
it's in the eating. Right? So it's only a matter of time before we know whether this is just another headline grabbing announcement or is actually a true commitment, because the people are truly suffering. People haven't suffered this level of pain, discomfort, and I'm looking for the word. I'm looking for the right word. Uncertainty, since I dare say the civil war. Now, we have our senators, we have our legislators in Abuja, and it seems as if they're in a bubble. They're isolated from what is going on around the country. And when we need them to be keeping a very strong check on the executive, they're seemingly silent. Then we hear talk from certain government parastatal heads that they want to pass certain legislation. Case in point, this social media bill. In the midst of everything going on with Nigerians right now, is the passage of that bill of the utmost priority. What steps has the Senate taken to ensure that the sufferings of Nigerians currently is minimized to a bearable minimum? What measures have they taken to ensure increased accountability? What measures have they taken to ensure that the right things are done at the right time? We have the appointment of a certain agency head, which clearly violates the provisions of the law that set up the agency. Where was the Senate in all of this? And we now understand that he was appointed pursuant to an approval from the Senate. So in conclusion, it's very easy to get up and say it. But the truth of the matter is, can you actually walk the talk?
Yeah, just before I will rest that headline of this commitment now to passing pro-people legislation, is there really an absence of good laws being since the inception of the democratic dispensation from 1999? Do we really have a lack of laws, really?
So we don't have.
Evie, just chime in on that.
Listen, just to say it, there is no lack of laws. There is lack of enforcement. Is this the same Senate where prayers were sent at the end of one session that want to pass pro-people legislation? I'm afraid I have very little faith in their statement. But like we said, the taste of the pudding will be in the eating.
All right, so that said, that looks like a place for the green light to allow us go for this traffic to flow by. But when we come back, AB, we are staying with you because something around this issue of teachers, they're not happy and they're lambasting governors. So it looks like we'll need you to help us unpack that one after now. But also be sure to get your messages in on 0809-444-0981, responding to any of the headlines that analysts have so far broken down for us. We're Smooth 98.1 FM. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa.
Price on Smooth 98.1 is brought to you by ARN. ARN, let's face tomorrow together. Moving, grooving music on Smooth 98.1. Are you looking for a reliable way to grow your money? Let me tell you about ARM. ARM is one of the largest non-bank financial institutions with over 29 years of expertise in money management and wealth creation. It's almost 3 decades. ARM is all about ensuring your financial goals are met with ease, no matter who you are. Now, whether it's growing your money in safe, well-managed investments or important goals like school fees, personal development, vacations, rent, buying a property, or preparing for the future, ARM instruction covered. We all know there are a lot of apps out there promising to grow your money, but ARM has everything you need to go from where you are to where you need to be. Start your wealth creation journey today by downloading the ARM One app from the Google Play Store or iOS Store. There are great options for everyone. You even start with as low as 1,000 naira, just 1,000 naira. For more information, visit arm.com.ng or call 01-271-5002. That's 01-271-5002. ARM, let's face tomorrow together. Breakfast shows.
Oh, you're tuning in listening to Kick 98.1.
Fresh egress, restaurant, value career.
Where Smooth 98.1 FM has gone 13 minutes before it is 8 o'clock. It's still freshly pressed as we get on to pick up the next paper. And as a Punch newspaper, the Nigerian Union of Teachers, NUT, condemns overpopulation in state schools, lambasts governors. That's what the story is saying. So it seems, could this be a reflection now that since some private schools might be going beyond the reach of people now, it seems like everyone is heading back. And so we're having the classrooms crowded as we speak right now. Ebi.
Even before the recent hike in fees with the private schools and other things, there was already a massive overcrowding. I think the standard for a classroom ought to be between 23 and about 28 persons. In this story and in real life, we are seeing classes that have 100 people per class. First of all, there are sardine cans that don't have that many people in terms of density.
Then sardine cans would have been fish then. I'm sorry, maybe sardine would have been fish.
Saying
okay.
The overcrowding in a can is not as much as those classrooms. Okay. Now, you also have a situation where the people, of course, with that number, these classrooms were built for the standard. So there is not enough space for the people or for the furniture. So many times they are sitting on the floor. Many of the people driving in cars today to work must wonder what life is like to be a student today. I know I had a desk where I was able to carve my name in wrongly with a biro, and my fellow person also carved his name. And we sat down every day. We opened the desk, we put our books inside. There was even a storage thing at the back of the classroom. I cannot imagine what the classes are like. You're having this overcrowding. You tell a teacher, let's start with the students. How is the student supposed to pay attention when he can hardly breathe? They are not letting the students breathe. Second, how is the teacher supposed to handle the distractions and all that come from students? Then last of all, when it's time to mark, how are they marking 100 scripts in 2 weeks over 15 classes? It is impossible. No learning is going on, and the teachers' lives are made extremely miserable. So you're talking about overcrowding. Then side by side with it, you have the case of students who are being abducted up and down. And the students ask a question. And we also have this news where Nigeria is the country in the whole wide world and the universe as well. I heard it in places like Jupiter. They also have out-of-school students. In the whole universe, Nigeria is the country with the largest number of out-of-school students. So the teachers ask the question, even if you are to bring these students back, where will they fit? It goes back again to what I said, priorities. What do the state and local government heads consider to be priority, apart from the producing a future for these students? If you don't educate the people, you are creating a horrible, huge time bomb. A week ago, we talked about something good for World Girls Day or something like that. And I made a quip that day. I said, when these girls are educated, is it the boys who are now bandits that they will marry? All students have to be educated, and you cannot get a good education in such abhorrent physical circumstances. Classrooms with leaking roofs, classrooms with no doors and windows, classrooms with people packed literally standing or sitting at the windowsill. That is not the proper, so that's the classroom. I ask you a question. Do you think there's a laboratory, whether for chemistry, but do you think such things exist? And so I really truly look back and I think of the time, and I'm not saying, oh, the former days were good, but I remember I had a laboratory to go to. I had a library to go to. I cannot imagine what it must be like now. So even those who are paying for private school, they're doing it for a reason. But the public school system ought to cater for the public. That is why people are taxed. Market women are taxed 1,000, 2,000 a day. Big companies are taxed. What is that tax being used for? Oil companies are taxed. What is that tax being used for? I repeat, wardrobe allowance, newspaper allowance, vehicle allowance, and other silly allowances that are not prioritizing the lives of the human beings in Nigeria. It's a tragedy, it's a crime, it's a scandal.
Now, this next story is closely related to what AB has touched on right now, Mr. C. So let's see what the Punch newspaper is saying. I'd like you to also take it up from where AB has left off now, where the Punch newspaper says 30,000 naira minimum wage. Bayelsa teachers threaten indefinite strike. These teachers are not smiling at all.
Okay, thank you, Mas. This is truly regrettable and very sad. And it is even shocking that they want to commence an indefinite strike for the sum of 30,000 naira, which is in itself a ridiculous joke. Now, it then begs the question, what have they been earning before now? And why have they waited until this very moment in time to proceed on this indefinite strike? Could it be that the elections next month by us to determine who the next government will be? Now, it's a number of things. They did point out the fact that Bayelsa is potentially the fourth highest earning state in terms of internally generated revenue. I haven't been able to confirm that fact, but let's even work with it on the surface. Yes, they're the fourth highest earning state in the Federation. The bigger question is, why are the teachers being owed? Two, are the teachers the only civil servants, public servants being owed? So it speaks to a lack of accountability, it speaks to a lack of proper governance, and it also speaks in a sense to complicity, because before now, what has the NUT been doing? What have they been saying in Bayelsa State? There's nothing to indicate that they've been in discussions with the state government. What they said, a 3-day warning strike failed, and they are now going on an indefinite strike. Now, my question to them is this. School is currently in session. When you proceed on an indefinite strike during the school session, are you not playing with the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of students in Bayelsa State? And if you do not get what you are requesting for, what is the fate of those students? Are you then saying they're no longer entitled to proper education? Are you then saying that their futures will be stagnated because you didn't get the money you properly should get? So this is a clarion call. It's not every day we should read reports of one union or the other wanting to go on strike. And governments, both at the national level and the sub-national level, should start to do the needful, should start to do the purposeful. Nip all these things in the bud. Have discussions with them, and where you ought to pay, for the love of everything, God, do what you want to do.
Well, this looks like a fine place to get the listener into this conversation. So we've got a paper each to go between both of you. So that looks like a very good place to get this messages in quickly now. I've got Don Kelvin saying, amusing that president said he's ending borrowing, then steps out through Mr. Edu to beg to borrow 1.5 billion US dollars from the IMF, and he drops a laughter emoji there. I've got Nedu with a message here for us, and he says that what do we want Tinubu to do? How about attend to federal roads? I applied the Port Harcourt to Calabar route last week, and it says Thursday, and it took 7 hours. The One Road is an economic shamble. There is also national security and other necessary infrastructure. If the federal government gets their acts together, the state will follow suit, and then the local government, and that's what Nedu sent in here. I've got a message in here also from JP. JP says, who really checks who between legislative and executive arm? In my view, it's just about self. And then when will we be ready? 160 million naira per car in a nation people can't feed. Despicable. That's what JP sent in. And next comes this one. It says it's unthinkable that while the Minister of Finance is seeking IMF support loan for the budget deficit, the National Assembly is preparing to purchase for themselves new vehicles to the tune of about 57 billion naira. Where will the money come from? Ajayi Olonilua from Agodo GR Isheri leaves us with that rhetoric question there. And then Tajuddin from Alimosho says, AB probably didn't school in Nigeria or he schooled in the highbrow areas. While I was in junior school about 30 years ago, we were more than 100 in class and we had about 10 classes for my level. So A, B, C, and probably there's F sometimes, and then there's even G sometimes where they throw some persons too. Anyway, let's go. More messages here.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's Tajuddin letting you know. So it seemed like you guys were in different worlds. His was 30 years ago. Yours could have been maybe
over 40 years ago.
Over 40 years ago.
Yes.
So,
but in Nigeria.
But the same Nigeria. Okay. So for the records, the Nigerian government primary and secondary school educational system was already dead since the 90s. Right now, it's comatose. And next, I would find this one here, which says our problem, corruption, and this is the basis of our predicament. In terms of food production, North is far better. Here in the Southwest is preferred for property development than farming. Like I asked the question sometime, when I see these tankers that come from the North to get petrol, you have tomato and other things tied to it. So when it's going back, what's tied to it that like the produce we are sending to them up north? Like just corroborating what he said now, Kende saying that at least they produce, they still farm. So this is something we have to begin to look into. But let's get back to AB. This is your final paper for us this morning. And this one is going to Maiduguri from Daily Post. It says residents storm Maiduguri rail terminals to protest removal of coaches. They've seen the train of the effect of it. They think somebody's playing smart, want to deprive them of it.
Very quickly, it seems to be a communication issue. They saw coaches being loaded to be taken for repairs at Jos. But because of a high degree of mistrust between the citizenry and the government, they protested that why are these things being taken away? And they suspect that once they are taken away, they'll be put into use elsewhere. So there's a serious gap in communication. And I'm hoping that when it's explained to them exactly what is going on, they may calm down. But that just says that there was a problem because that information should have been communicated broadly and simply. Therefore, people would have known. At the same time, what kind of repairs are going on? Are there none that can be done there to also employ some people in Maiduguri? Just a question. But of course, aeroplanes are not repaired in every airport. You have some major places where they're repaired. So I can understand that it's a matter of communication.
Well, thank you, Mr. C. If you can do this for us in less than a minute, your final paper from the Premium Times, it says, again, terrorists abduct university students in Zamfara.
Okay, very quickly. Thank you. Our thoughts continue to go out to families and to students who have been previously abducted and have not been released, and even the latest set. So again, the Federal University, Gusau in Zamfara State, has been attacked again, and 2 more students have been abducted. On the 24th of September, which is literally 3 weeks ago, less than 3 weeks, 24 students were taken from the same school. Some are still in forced captivity. And it begs the question, for the love of everything good, do our security agencies not learn any lessons from certain events? And when certain events happen, what steps do they take in place? Now, if the school is unsafe, if you cannot guarantee safety, why not shut down physical classes and make everybody go online? It is extremely traumatic and painful for a Nigerian citizen to wake up and be taken into forced captivity, not knowing whether he or she would ever see their loved ones again. And this is a clarion call to the security agencies. You have to move everything under the sun to ensure that these abducted people are united with the weapons.
And that's a fine place to anchor the show this morning. That's talking about freshly pressed. But I'll throw in a message from Gary Newton, who sent in a message saying, please, why are these reps needing SUV and bulletproof cars? They have refused to serve the nation. Bad roads and insecurity, unemployment, among other things. Angry Nigerians everywhere. Talking about new ministers and the size of the cabinet, you have not seen half of the cabinet, trust me, since the government can't deliver their promises to Nigerians. And as a nation, can't do a thing. Those who can hold the government to ransom are being engaged in the cabinet to get their promises. And I see something from Azuka Opute. It just shows us the state of the Apapa axis of the road where tankers are parked on both sides of the road, and it's not a sight to look at. Honestly, it's not at all good for the health of the bridge. Emeka, I see your message, but that's all we can take this morning. I want to say thank you to AB Bozimo for your time this morning.
Thank you. The pleasure and privilege are both mine. Have a wonderful week ahead.
And I say thank you to Mr. C.
Thank you for having me.
And to you who's been part of the conversation so far, we say thank you very much. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. Good morning.